I see a lot of familiar faces. I live in Rosewood Heights, so it's not often I get to say that I'm presenting in the town I live in. I'm usually out east. A lot of my territory goes out east toward Effingham. I also go down kind of Mount Vernon area, not too far south. Monroe County a lot, and I go all the way up north almost to Springfield, and I do work in Springfield from time to time as a liaison a little bit here and there. So I'm all over the place. But it's good to be in town today, and I'm glad Sherry asked me. It gives me a reason to be home and to get to do some work from home today, so that's always nice. So thanks for having me out. Normally, we talk a little bit about some of the things that the Comptroller's office does before we start, which is pays the bills, right? Or maybe lack thereof right now. You know, it's a little tough out there. But the good news is it does seem like our leaders are working together now to construct a plan. It sounds like they're getting further along in the budget negotiations than we were several months ago. So we're hoping maybe by January, insider baseball is they're hoping that maybe we'll have a budget passed in January. Now that means for the bill backlog that the Comptroller's office faces will probably be about 8.2 to like $8.5 billion backlog. Usually this time of year it does get a little tough. The backlog's generally pretty high. Our lowest time of the year for a bill backlog would be around income tax season. When we have a lot of money coming in, we can then pay a lot of bills out. So right now, we're at like $7 billion, 480 something million, give or take a little bit. I think that's today's numbers, and it fluctuates pretty greatly from day to day. The good news is we are going to have a lot of bills that are paid now. If you didn't see, on Monday, the Senate got together and voted on some bills that had already passed the House, which will release some motor fuel tax to the communities. Also releases some sales tax money. The lottery winners are now being paid, so if any of you are holding out on buying your lottery tickets, go ahead and head to Farm Fresh after we leave. Let's see who else is getting paid. Domestic violence shelters. That money was approved for payment. And I think in that bill was about $28 million in total. About 18 of that, I think, goes to domestic violence shelters. 10 million or so went to the Secretary of State offices. If you had heard that some of the lights were being shut off, you know, power companies were threatening to shut off some lights and things at some of our state office buildings, well, we've taken care of that. So those payments went out immediately. We had all those set aside, ready to be paid as soon as the legislature okayed those bills. We sent them out. So motor fuel tax money, if any of you, I know you're Mayor B. Stolten, so it'll be good to know. I think that probably should have already hit your bank account, but if it hasn't, it'll be soon. We had all those ready to go, and we started firing those off right away as of Monday. So, and if anybody else has any questions in their area about state payments or when they should expect to receive certain payments, or if you know any entities in your area, nonprofits, folks like that who might be having a hard time, they can call me directly. I can get them set up. We work with nonprofits every day too. Good news is a lot of our nonprofits and folks like that are continuing to be paid. Court order mandated us to pay those, even though we didn't have a budget in place. So about 90% of state government is still being funded. Only about 10% isn't. The bad news is we are paying based on numbers from the income tax increase that was increased in, what was that, 2010, right? 2010 or 2011? So after that income tax increase was passed and then sunsetted, court order mandates that we continue payments based on the appropriation from the year prior, which means that we're paying based on an income tax increase that has since sunsetted. So we're back to like 3.5% when it was at 5%. So we've got a lot less money coming in and the same amount of money going out. We haven't passed a budget. Hopefully, like I said, January we're looking at passing a budget, hopefully. We'll see what happens. Nobody can be sure. And by that time, we will have reached about $8.5 billion in our bill backlog. The problem there lies some of our late payments. On an average year, we're paying between about $15 and $20 million in late payment penalties. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what kind of shape that we're in fiscally. This year, we're hoping not to exceed that too heavily, but since we have had a lack of a budget for 6 months now, I guess, we're going to get hit with some late payment penalties, more than likely. Now, the good news is a lot of our leaders have negotiated with several of these folks we're making these late payments to either cut that interest rate down that we're going to owe them on, or to eliminate it altogether. And several of them have worked with us and said, listen, we get it, you're in bad shape. Others we haven't been so lucky with. So I think right now it's tough, you know, and everybody sees all the negative news articles, but I think things are going to get a little more positive as we go on. The Comptroller's office, though, if you do know nonprofits out there in your areas, anybody that is having a hard time getting paid, we're trying to get those folks paid. We don't want anybody to shut any programs down or close any doors, so please let us know. We'll do what we can to expedite money to those folks if they're in bad shape. Another thing, so we have basically, a lot of funding hasn't been going out to homeless, to some of the homeless, like the non-Medicaid homeless healthcare. So we have found ways to get these nonprofits. We've worked with some of the nonprofits. The nonprofits have worked amongst themselves at finding ways to get them healthcare through their nonprofits. That's been working really well. We're hoping to have some of that funding restored as well. You never know. Let's see, what other funding? MAP grants, community colleges, four-year institutions, higher learning centers. Your higher education hasn't received a check since like October 1. So a lot of these folks are, you know, they're ready to see some money and funding come through too. We'll see what happens, I guess, when the budget gets passed. I know that I've reached out to a few of those folks myself. I've spoken with several of them. It's tough, but we're getting there. And the Comptroller's office is doing everything we can to make sure that these things get paid and get paid as quickly as possible. So if you have any questions or concerns, bring them to me. Happy to do what I can. Other than that, though, I'm here for you guys. If you have any questions for me, I do have a handout here. It's got the warehouse and the ledger on it. These are two websites that we run out of the Comptroller's office. The warehouse is local finances. It helps you track like counties, municipalities, townships, special purpose districts, taxing districts, things like that. There's all sorts of information on here though. Financial information. Then the ledger is mostly state things. So if you want to see how much money I make, you can get on here after we leave and check me out. You know, type my name in and it'll pull it right up for you. If you want to complain about it too, you know, if you want to give me a raise, that'd be great.